Ride the signal through the unknown. This is The Cryptic Current.
Christopher Nolan's latest film, a biography of the father of the atomic bomb, J. Robert Oppenheimer. I wonder if everyone has watched it yet? Whether you haven't seen it, has seen it, or only watched film reviews. Today's video might bring you more valuable and multi-dimensional thoughts, especially about the biography and role of the main character in the film. The film has many dialogues and characters appearing, so if you haven't researched the character Oppenheimer, you might find it a bit confusing and regrettable. If you observe subtly, combined with historical knowledge, plus some analysis and organization, you will definitely discover many hidden truths in the film. For example, right from the beginning of the film, director Nolan showed the image of the quantum world in Oppenheimer's mind. What did he see? Which statement by Oppenheimer changed Mr. Tan's expression after hearing it? And at the end of the film, there's a mention of the 35th President of the United States, John Kennedy. Did you notice that the US President appearing in the film during that period was Harry Truman, a supporter of nuclear weapons, followed by Dwight D. Eisenhower, who is said to have signed agreements with aliens, and immediately after that, Kennedy, who is believed to have been assassinated for knowing too much. So, what is the relationship between them? And how is Kennedy's assassination related to the Oppenheimer incident? Truly, was Oppenheimer a hero or the angel of death? Today, we will talk about them together. Hello everyone, I am Miss Ruby. Before introducing Oppenheimer, we have already explored the film Oppenheimer, American Prometheus, the triumph or tragedy of J. Robert Oppenheimer. In Greek mythology, Prometheus means the one who foresees the future. The biography itself won the Pulitzer Prize for Biography and Autobiography in 2006. Since its global release on July 20th, the box office revenue has exceeded $700 million US. Of course, this number is still increasing. The film's director and actors are also top-tier stars. Tenet. The lead actor playing Oppenheimer is Cillian Murphy, whom Nolan greatly admires, having participated in many of his films. Batman Begins. Although Cillian Murphy played important roles, none were lead roles. This is the first time he has taken on a lead role in a Nolan film. Director Nolan said he really likes his eyes, and there are also appearances by famous stars like Robert Downey Jr., Florence Pugh. Nolan currently ranks 8th in the global director box office rankings. Oppenheimer. Batman. Each film earned over $1 billion in box office revenue. In the rankings, the director with the highest box office revenue in the world currently is Steven Spielberg, an American director with a global total revenue of $10.7 billion. Jurassic Park. Second place is James Cameron, a Canadian director, with a global box office revenue of $8.7 billion. Avatar. Oppenheimer. While those 17 and under need adult accompaniment, Tino, the film. Because the Japanese have complex emotions towards Oppenheimer and the atomic bomb who researched and developed. After all, Japan is the only country in the world to have been hit by atomic bombs. The destructive power of these two bombs was primarily aimed at civilians. Oppenheimer's life was full of turbulence, both glorious and controversial. Everyone knows he was the inventor of the atomic bomb, the father of the atomic bomb, but at the same time brought great instability to the world and the risk of destroying Earth, even later still having the potential to destroy this planet. Oppenheimer was born on April 22, 1904, into a wealthy Jewish family in New York. His father was a German-born Jew who came to America at age 17, starting from nothing, and was very successful in the textile import business. His mother's family was also very wealthy. She was a painter who ran an art gallery and traded famous artworks. His mother's collection included several original paintings by Picasso and Van Gogh. Oppenheimer had a younger brother named Frank, 8 years his junior, who was a famous German-American physicist. From childhood, Oppenheimer was a genius, passionate about mathematics, chemistry, and geology, always achieving excellent results and saving grades continuously. Oppenheimer was not only good at natural sciences but also had remarkable language talent. He was fluent in a total of 6 languages: English, French, German, Italian, Dutch, and even Sanskrit. This was also clearly shown in the film about him. Through Oppenheimer's strengths, people can see his left brain was exceptionally developed, especially in logical thinking and language, while his motor skills were very ordinary, making him the clumsy type. At age 17, Oppenheimer was admitted to Harvard University for science, but after he accepted, his whole family went traveling together. During the trip, Oppenheimer contracted severe gastroenteritis and had to defer for a year, and only officially enrolled at Harvard at age 18. Despite enrolling a year late, he still continuously skipped grades at Harvard. In just 3 years, he completed all courses and graduated with the highest honors. When graduating from American universities, they typically rate graduates in 3 levels: excellent, very excellent, and most excellent. Oppenheimer achieved the highest level. Though majoring in chemistry in college, Oppenheimer found chemistry too simple. So he self-studied physics and gradually became passionate about the field. Therefore, after graduating from Harvard, Oppenheimer went to Cambridge University studying physics and chemistry. However, Cambridge's physics and chemistry department at that time focused on experimental research, while Oppenheimer, as mentioned, had poor motor skills and was clumsy, so he frequently broke laboratory equipment. Gradually, even Oppenheimer himself became frustrated with conducting experiments. At this time, he met the person who changed his life, Niels Bohr. This name might be unfamiliar to many, but his status in physics is comparable to Einstein's. Bohr and Einstein belonged to different schools of thought. Einstein followed the theory of relativity, while Bohr was one of the representatives of quantum mechanics. Bohr was born into a wealthy Jewish family in Denmark. His mother's family was in banking, and his son was a professor at the University of Copenhagen. In 1925, Bohr visited and exchanged at Cambridge University, where he met Oppenheimer. Influenced by Bohr, Oppenheimer shifted to theoretical physics, no longer needing to conduct experiments. And since Cambridge wasn't a top school for theoretical physics, Oppenheimer followed Bohr's advice and transferred to the University of Göttingen in Germany. Göttingen was then the world's leading university for theoretical research, with thriving theoretical research fields such as philosophy, sociology, law, mathematics, and theoretical physics. Theoretical physics included quantum mechanics and nuclear physics. Therefore, after arriving at the University of Göttingen, Oppenheimer pursued a major in theoretics, and he received his doctorate in 1928. At this time, Oppenheimer was only 24 years old. After receiving his doctorate at the University of Göttingen, he returned to the United States. Many universities in the United States invited him to teach. Finally, Oppenheimer chose to become an assistant professor at the University of California, Berkeley. During his teaching period, he continued to research theoretical physics. He also researched astrophysics, including neutron stars. Eventually, Oppenheimer discovered black holes. That is, theoretically, he deduced the existence of black holes. Black hole. And no one knew what it was. Additionally, during his teaching, he trained a series of physics talents. After more than 10 years of teaching, in 1939, World War II broke out. At that time, Oppenheimer was 35 years old, just before World War II broke out, in late 1938. German scientists Otto Hahn and Fritz Strassmann first discovered the phenomenon of nuclear fission. This phenomenon was initially discovered by scientists when they collided neutrons with uranium nuclei. Chemical changes occurred that they did not expect. At that time, they had no idea what had happened. They immediately published this discovery. As a result, less than a month later, 2 Austrian physicists Lise Meitner and her nephew Otto Frisch explained this phenomenon theoretically. They said that when neutrons collide with uranium nuclei, it creates 2 smaller nuclei and releases a large amount of energy. And so nuclear energy was discovered. After they published the discovery of nuclear reactions producing energy, the physics community worldwide was shocked. On one hand, humans had found a huge energy source from atomic nuclei. On the other hand, it was the chain reaction of nuclear fission. Therefore, many physicists immediately thought of using it to make bombs. Moreover, it was a bomb with unimaginable destructive power. And exactly 8 months after the discovery of nuclear reaction, on September 1st, 1939, Nazi Germany invaded Poland. 2 days later, Britain and France declared war on Germany. World War II broke out. And because the Nazis brutally oppressed Jews, many Jewish physicists began to flee. Some fled to Sweden, some fled to Denmark. Denmark is located north of Germany. Earlier we mentioned Niels Bohr, a very wealthy Jew. He helped many physicists flee to Denmark. As a result, half a year later, Germany invaded Denmark. Bohr was Jewish, so he also had to flee. And so he fled to Britain, eventually to the United States, and collaborated with Oppenheimer. Bohr was 19 years older than Oppenheimer, and the Nazis knew from the beginning that nuclear reactions could form weapons. So they also immediately began researching nuclear weapons. The physicist leading Germany's nuclear weapons research at that time was Werner Heisenberg. This person was even considered more of a genius than Oppenheimer. Actually, at the University of Göttingen, Oppenheimer wasn't considered a genius either because there were too many geniuses there. So it can be said that Oppenheimer was just a very ordinary person, while the others were all true geniuses. Werner Heisenberg was pure German, not Jewish, and was one of the founders of quantum mechanics. Heisenberg was only 3 years older than Oppenheimer, but when Oppenheimer came to Göttingen to study, Heisenberg was already a lecturer at the University of Göttingen. Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer's teacher at Göttingen was Max Born. Although Max Born himself wasn't Jewish, he had Jewish ancestry, meaning his ancestors were Jewish, and Heisenberg was actually Max Born's teaching assistant. So, the series of figures we just mentioned, Oppenheimer, Max Born, and others, were all Jewish. Only Heisenberg wasn't. And after World War II broke out, all Jews were persecuted. So a large number of physicists had to flee Germany. Heisenberg had no choice but to devote himself to serving Germany. There was such a relationship between them. As for the physicists who had to flee, where would they go? Mainly to Britain and America. And after World War II broke out, Britain and America heard that Germany was researching nuclear weapons. Once Germany developed them first, everything would be over. Notably, Heisenberg wrote a letter to the American president, saying that Germany was researching atomic bombs and they had to hurry. So in 1942, America immediately launched the Manhattan Project, with the goal of researching atomic bombs before Germany. And the person chosen to lead this project was Oppenheimer. Actually, although the emigrated German physicists were all excellent, the German physicists who remained were also extremely outstanding. In Oppenheimer's eyes, all the remaining physicists were geniuses. In the Oppenheimer movie it was also said, the American man said, "I met these people, so I understand very clearly that Germany relying on these physicists to research and develop atomic bombs would be faster than all other countries combined. So if we compare speeds, we have no chance of winning. Even if we add up, we still have no chance of winning." But Oppenheimer was very lucky, because Hitler had a problem. He didn't like quantum mechanics, because Hitler considered quantum mechanics to be Jewish science. So he strongly opposed quantum mechanics. Therefore, he didn't support research in quantum mechanics. Do you like it? He didn't. Atomic bomb research continued, but in a different direction, not using Jewish science for research. This slowed down their research speed. And this is the opportunity for Oppenheimer. Some might wonder, what does the atomic bomb have to do with quantum mechanics? Indeed, it belongs to the microscopic world, the quantum world. Einstein's theory of relativity studies the universe. Of course, Einstein also contributed to quantum mechanics, specifically the quantum of light. They covered this part in the video, and therefore, those researching the atomic bomb are essentially quantum mechanics. So why did many outstanding scientists choose Oppenheimer? Because he had some advantages. In fact, in quantum mechanics, Oppenheimer was nearly the best in Germany, and quantum mechanics originated in Germany, so Europe had early access to this field. After Oppenheimer returned to the US, Americans all studied under him. It's said that there was a new type of physics in Europe, and they flocked to his lectures. Everyone found it very strange. There are several reasons why Oppenheimer became the head of the Manhattan Project. First, Oppenheimer was American. They talked about many excellent musicians and physicists, but they weren't. So they wouldn't be of much use, right? As survival, it can. Of course, foreigners could participate, but not lead. Second, Oppenheimer was Jewish. And being born opposing fascism was natural. Third, he knew 6 languages. The Manhattan Project needed to gather top scientists from various fields to work together. These scientists spoke many languages, and Oppenheimer could easily communicate with all. He knew Dutch, having learned it in just half a year. And when he spoke Dutch, listeners were amazed. Fourth, Oppenheimer was a versatile talent. Though specialized in quantum mechanics, he had a solid foundation in chemistry, and also studied astrophysics and applied mathematics. The research and development of the atomic bomb was a complex, multidisciplinary project, precisely requiring such a comprehensive talent. Fifth, perhaps the most important reason, he not only knew many languages but also had excellent communication skills. He could connect all experts, whether government officials, military personnel, or subordinates, to work together effectively. Such a talent doesn't sound like a scientific researcher, does it? But like an extremely talented project manager. And because of his good communication skills, he had a wide network. Many people recommended Oppenheimer to lead the Manhattan Project. But note, Oppenheimer was in charge of the scientific side of the Manhattan Project. And the project also had a military head. That was Lieutenant General Leslie, played by Matt Damon in the film. So in 1943, Oppenheimer was appointed director of the Los Alamos National Laboratory. In reality, he was the head of the Manhattan Project. After the project began, Oppenheimer summoned top world scholars like Newport, Enrico Fermi, von Neumann, a group of the best scholars gathered. And these were all geniuses, even surpassing Oppenheimer. Most were American, but with diverse origins. And most of them were physicists. There was even an active spy who infiltrated and was only discovered later. He was also a physicist. Among these scholars, there was one named Claude Fuchs, a German-born British physicist who was also Jewish. He spied for the Soviet Union. While in Germany, because he was Jewish, he was persecuted and fled to Britain. Later, he was sent from Britain to the United States to participate in the Manhattan Project. During his time in the project, he made extremely important contributions, but at the same time also revealed many secrets to the Soviet Union. So when did he contact the Soviet Union? Long before, even before the Manhattan Project began. This plot is also depicted in the movie, which is when the Manhattan Project was underway. The Americans discovered that the Soviet Union was also research. Moreover, their research directions were very similar. So they began to suspect there was a mole in the Manhattan Project. During World War II, the Soviet Union and the US were. But this relationship wasn't because they were close, but because they had a common enemy. So fundamentally, the relationship between the US and the Soviet Union was never good. The US was always wary of the Soviet Union, never expecting that the Soviets would have a large amount of atomic and hydrogen bomb designs and experimental data through Fuchs. However, throughout the Manhattan Project, Fuchs was never detected. It wasn't until after the war ended that he was discovered to be a spy. The super spy. So how did they finally discover he was a spy? After World War II ended, Soviet-American relations deteriorated rapidly. Entering the period of the Cold War, the US and Britain began large-scale sweeps for Soviet spies. As a result, Britain cracked the Soviet Union's secrets, discovering Fuchs' espionage activities within it. In 1950, he was arrested by Britain and confessed. By then the war had ended. Fuchs had returned from the US to Britain, so he was arrested in Britain. He admitted to revealing a large amount of information about the Manhattan Project to the Soviets. At the same time, through him, the US also learned that the Soviets conducted many espionage activities in Europe and America, and he also revealed other spies. Ultimately, he was sentenced to 14 years in prison, a period not too long. The spies he revealed were executed. After Fuchs was arrested, relations between the West and the Soviet Union became. The US took it a step further, beginning to sweep for spies. Even Oppenheimer himself was put on the investigation list. In fact, the entire movie starts from the security investigation of Oppenheimer. Why was Oppenheimer suspected of being a spy? It was because his brother and some of his friends were communists. And why were communists considered spies? Because the Soviet Union was communist. Even Oppenheimer's wife, Kitty, and his former girlfriend were members of the American Communist Party at that time. This former girlfriend is also prominently depicted in the movie, and she was real. But in 1944, she committed. Therefore, around Oppenheimer, everyone was a communist. So did Oppenheimer hide this truth? Absolutely not. The main purpose of America's spy purge was to catch communists. Ideologically, communism and capitalism are completely opposed. And in World War II, we all know the US and the Soviet Union were allies. Therefore, at that time, the US didn't pay much attention to Oppenheimer himself was not a communist, but those around him were party members. The US government had long known this, but initially did not consider him a danger. Otherwise, they wouldn't have chosen him to lead the Manhattan Project. But when the war ended, everything changed. The US and the Soviet Union became enemies. Communists in America would be purged. Anyone associated with them would be investigated. Thus, Oppenheimer became a subject of investigation. Additionally, there was another important reason. That was after the war, Oppenheimer was regarded as a hero of humanity for researching and developing the atomic bomb, ending the war. Therefore, Oppenheimer's social status was very high, with great influence. But after the war, Oppenheimer's stance on nuclear weapons changed 180 degrees. He opposed continuing nuclear weapons development, opposed the hydrogen bomb, and opposed nuclear proliferation. Actually, during the research and development of the nuclear bomb, that is, in the Manhattan Project, Oppenheimer had very complex emotions and fluctuations. Initially, Oppenheimer was very actively involved in the project. He believed the project could subdue Germany, end the World War, and it was a glorious endeavor. Moreover, he himself was passionate about scientific research. It was his forte, so he wanted to contribute. But when he witnessed the first successful atomic bomb test on July 16, 1945, seeing the terrifying destructive power in the mushroom cloud, he began to waver. Later, Oppenheimer recalled and said, when he saw that scene, he immediately thought of a saying, "I have become death, the destroyer of worlds." This saying originates from the Indian scripture Bhagavad Gita. In the Bhagavad Gita, the god Vishnu spreads his arms and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." It can be seen how shocking the moment Oppenheimer saw the nuclear bomb explode was. Actually, this shock was deeply and subtly portrayed in the film. When the thumping drums sound, that is the sound of Oppenheimer's inner torment and anguish. People can watch the film to experience this. At that moment, he truly felt he was about to destroy the world. They used calculation formulas and discovered the atomic bomb explosion could indeed blow up the atmosphere. Once the atmosphere explodes, it would cause a chain reaction. The Earth would truly be destroyed. But after multiple calculations, the results show the probability. That possibility is nearly zero, but not absolutely zero. Actually, if people pay attention, it seems in the film, director Nolan subtly hinted that perhaps Oppenheimer connected with the Akashic. Because early in the film, some scenes in Oppenheimer's brain continuously show the quantum world, especially when lying in bed during his studies abroad. In his dreams, or whenever he thought about a physical phenomenon, he can see atoms and the workings of the quantum world. In fact, think about it, if you can't see, and only rely on thinking and imagination to visualize quantum operations, is impossible. In that era, people couldn't see quantum phenomena and relied entirely on deduction. Unlike now, when we can emit photons or electrons. That era saw nothing, could only rely on thinking and imagination. Aren't there many famous physicists who can calculate in their heads? They had seen some things. Actually, probably many people also if you want to reach that level. Like Tesla is a typical example. Connect to the Akashic Records, there. That means relying solely on skills isn't, but must rely on innate talent. So does Oppenheimer have a quantum computer in his brain? Perhaps there's a database in his brain. He knows the answer, not because of fast calculation but knows immediately. Actually, during the testing phase, Oppenheimer suffered a huge shock. The result was America later dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan, causing massive casualties among civilians, making Oppenheimer more conflicted and tormented. But anyway, what's done is done, he had no other choice. So he could only strive to call for preventing nuclear weapons proliferation, to salvage the situation and prevent it from— Actually, there's one scene in the movie that greatly affected me. The movie doesn't show the atomic bombs being, but it does show American senior officials discussing how to drop atomic bombs on Japan. In this meeting, Lieutenant General Leslie said, "Our military is preparing to drop 2 atomic bombs. Normally, if it's for deterrence, dropping 1 would be enough. Why did they decide to drop 2? Leslie said, "The first one is for deterrence, and the second one is to let Japan and the whole world know that we can continue to create this fear, not just one bomb." They wanted to plant permanent fear in the hearts of people worldwide. Why did America want to plant fear in the hearts of people worldwide, not just Japanese people? Because previously America researched and developed atomic bombs to deal with Germany, but when the atomic bomb test succeeded, meaning before development was complete, Germany had surrendered. The first successful atomic bomb test was July 16, 1945, while Germany surrendered on May 8, 1945. Fortunately, after Germany surrendered, whether America should continue atomic bomb research was controversial. And America persisted in continuing research, then used it in actual combat to warn the world. To let the whole world know how powerful we are. And after the war, Oppenheimer immediately publicly opposed hydrogen bomb research. This went against American national interests and the views of many politicians at that time. Notably, America and the Soviet Union were in a to develop hydrogen bombs, shouldn't. Moreover, you have great influence. As a scientist that the whole world pays attention, if what you say doesn't align with us, we can only eliminate you. Therefore, in 1953, the AEC began formal investigations into Oppenheimer. After a year of review and hearings, they finally decided to revoke Oppenheimer's security clearance. What does this mean? It means the country no longer trusts Oppenheimer's security reliability. Therefore, he could never again participate in defense-related work. And scientific research related to national secrets is what professional honor and reputation also vanish along with. Perhaps you might think that if the security clearance is lost, one just needs to stop cooperating with the government and military. But in reality, it's not that simple. After the security clearance is revoked, no one would dare to cooperate with him anymore. Meaning his own identity itself has become problematic. Even having a few words with him could lead to an investigation. Therefore, the latter half of Oppenheimer's life was quite miserable and lonely. Oppenheimer had his clearance revoked in 1954, when he was 50 years old. Just 13 years later, in 1967, he died of lung cancer at the age of 62. Oppenheimer lived every day tormented by guilt, especially after seeing the photos from Hiroshima, he said. He constantly questioned himself every day and lived in suffering. In 1963, before his death, John Kennedy decided to award the Enrico Fermi Prize to Oppenheimer. This is a special award for those with outstanding contributions to nuclear physics. The prize is awarded annually to honor his contributions to theoretical physics and the National Nuclear Energy Project. This was also seen as a correction to the previous mistaken political conclusion about Oppenheimer, along with a $50,000. The award was given while he was still alive, but Oppenheimer passed away just 4 years later. Although Kennedy was the one who decided to award the prize to Oppenheimer, he was assassinated before the award ceremony. In fact, the person who presented the award to Oppenheimer was the succeeding president, Lyndon Johnson. As for the film Oppenheimer, it truly has reference value in many aspects. From society, science, politics, humanity, to love. But truly, without knowledge of the historical context and characters in the film, it would be difficult to follow and fully understand. Oppenheimer's development of the nuclear bomb led to the deaths of over 200,000 people. Bringing fear and the threat of destruction to humanity is undeniable. And the outcome of Oppenheimer's life is perhaps part of the price he paid for what he did. During the Manhattan Project, Oppenheimer had the opportunity to stop his research. But ultimately, he still decided to continue. According to the film's plot, the reason Oppenheimer continued was due to the historical context of America at that time. Having just experienced Japan's sudden and devastating attack on Pearl Harbor, forcing the US to enter the war. Many American soldiers were still fighting on the battlefield. Added to that was the concern about the stubbornness and brutality of Japanese fascism prolonging the World War endlessly. We have destroyed the world. The US president at the time, Harry Truman, supported nuclear weapons and disagreed with Oppenheimer's advice to stop developing nuclear weapons. But after John Kennedy came to power, he awarded the prize and cleared Oppenheimer's name. And perhaps it was precisely because of his unconventional thoughts and actions, along with knowing too much after becoming president, that led to Kennedy's assassination. Through the film, we can see, no one can escape the vortex of fame, power, politics, and struggle. Even a genius like Oppenheimer. Ultimately was just a pawn in the hands of politicians to achieve their goals, regardless of others' lives. And the loss of moral restraint in humans is truly terrifying. What about you? What do you think of this film? What aspect of the film resonated with you the most? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below the video. So our sharing for today will end here. If you found the video helpful, don't forget to share it with your friends. Let's watch together and thank you very much. Goodbye and see you in the next. Subscribe to the enigmatic channel so you don't miss interesting videos.
If the signal hooked you, subscribe and catch the next ripple.